Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Monday in the Riv, and unfortunately, we had a horrible tragedy over the weekend. Uh, we lost nine people, and I think the last number I saw was 30 that were injured. And we'll begin that by talking about the victims. Unlike Paul, who now is whining about politics because he got caught being a phony again. And forgive me if I go off on this show because this bothers me. I spent 38 years fighting fires in this city. I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, die at fires, and it lives with every firefighter. I remember the firefighter on fire on Pleasant Street on the corner of Webster, where we lost 12 people. They were jumping out the windows. Actually, the chief's aide's uncle jumped out a window and couldn't wait for the ladder and hit the sign on the commercial building downstairs, flipped over and landed on the street. And these things are tragic. But Paul Coogan publicized this. They all publicized this. Forgive me, because I had to put up with this for 38 years. I buried 5 men while I was on the job, and I was the president for most of those, for all of those deaths, actually, of the Union. And I had to march. And I had to watch these politicians march at the head of the parade, the funeral procession. And the same politicians who wouldn't buy us new apparatus until it became critical and the apparatus was breaking down and the public safety was jeopardized. And I went before the council numerous times, would not give us the manpower that we don't have, would not give us a Scott breathing apparatus. Let me tell you a story, a true story that goes back a long, long time ago when I was basically just past a recruit firefighter. At 555 Middle Street, Lieutenant Francis Candeas was killed in the line of duty attempting to rescue an occupant. He died because he had a 15-minute air tank with no warning bell to tell you were low on air. And he was so deep into the building searching, when he ran out of air, he couldn't make it out. He died 10 or 15 feet away from the window. Why wouldn't they buy the warning bells? Because it was too expensive. City of Fall River didn't want to buy warning bells for its firefighters because they were too expensive. And they wouldn't have warning bells today. But about 3 or 4 months later, another firefighter died somewhere up around Boston. And then after that happened, they mandated warning bells on the air tanks. These are the freaking bums that I got to listen to when this happened. It's an election year. They got Healy down here. They got everybody down here. Oh, what a tragedy. That's right. But where do we start? With the victims. Not, we got a 5-star fire department. We got a 5-star EMS department. We got a 5-star police department. All those departments are there to save lives. It's their job. By taking those jobs, they're special. I don't want to hear that shit, Paul, because you're a clown. And you proved it today. Today you exposed yourself, and I'm glad it's on Channel 12 for people to watch. We got a 5-star this, we got a 5-star that. We've been undermanned for 20 years. Over 20 years. I went before the city council on a 1710 Manning standard over 20 years ago. Told them we were undermanned. Showed them the standard for Manning that they still ignore. You know what they did? They voted it down 5-4. And you know who the swing vote was? Joe Camara. Joe Camara against Manning the apparatus. Why? This is why I hate him. This is how criminally negligent and disgustingly political they are. They got somebody that was friendly with our kiss-ass chief who wouldn't fight for the men, who knew somebody that worked for the National Fire Protection Association. They brought him down, and he perjured himself in front of the council. He said, "Oh, don't listen to him. He's misinterpreting the standard. I work for the NFPA." Well, I went nuts. Joe Camara used that as an excuse to vote against it. I called the International Association of Firefighters. I sent them the video. They researched him. The guy knew nothing about the Manning. I got a letter from the National Fire Protection Association saying that this man had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, and I was 100% correct in my interpretation of the 1710 standard. Did Joe Camara change his vote and give us minimum Manning? No. So am I pissed off tonight? We have 9 victims. Let me explain why. Why the Manning standard's important. And I don't want to hear Paul Coogan. Paul Coogan indicted himself. We got a 5-star department, and then at his next interview, he says, "I don't know anything about Manning. I don't know anything about anything, but I gave him 5 stars anyway. I give the chief anything he wants." But the chief that he's got passed over for district chief, and he had to kiss his ass to get the job. So I don't know who called the IFF. Hopefully the union did. Good move. Years ago in Boston, they had a chief with balls. When they cut his manpower, he said, "Nobody's going into a building. We're going to let the buildings burn. We're just going to rescue people." Firefighter jobs first to life safety. Those losses will be remembered by every single firefighter on that fire ground. The police, the fire, the people who were there, putting their life on the line, they have to be acknowledged right after the victims. Not bullshit politics like you just saw today. And then Coogan says, "Oh, I don't know nothing about Manning. I don't know what they're talking about." You're right. You don't know what anybody's talking about. All you ever did was walk around dirty with one hand up your ass and the other one kissing somebody else's ass. Okay? I'm sick of these politicians. Maura Healey doesn't give 2 shits about firefighters. She doesn't give 2 shits about anything except getting reelected. And it's an election year. I don't care what the damn politicians say. I watched them. 5 men I buried that died in the line of duty. And I watched those bums who wouldn't give us warning bells on the tanks, wouldn't give us good apparatus, wouldn't give us minimum Manning, march in a parade. The procession, right up there. Just like now. Children die in Texas. What are these politicians saying? Oh, it was because of cuts from Trump. No, it wasn't. They were fully staffed. It was at 2 o'clock in the morning. They had full staff. People didn't get the message, unfortunately. Things go south at fires. Combat operations and firefighting is the worst job you can have for changing dynamics. It's not simple. You know, you walk into an emergency room and you got an infection, they give you an antibiotic. Fire goes wherever it wants. It finds an empty hole. It'll go up a bay. It'll run all over the place. That building was a nightmare. Why? And they said it was now classified as a nursing home death. If it's a nursing home death, it's supposed to be inspected every quarter. The smoke detectors said it was a box alarm, so obviously it had a box. But there are corridors. That used to be a shelter for people who took one-room lodging. You can't negotiate hallways in heavy smoke. Well, I haven't looked at the NFPA lately, but the old stat was 75% of the fire deaths are caused by smoke inhalation, not the fire. These people were, some of them were probably non-ambulatory. They probably stayed in their rooms, which they should have. Like when you're in a high-rise, you don't go out into the hallway and get killed with the smoke. If you can get into the protected stairwells, which smoke can't get into, they get smoke doors. But these people were trapped in there. So the firefighters had a insurmountable task to try to get those people out. And, they were trying to get them out through windows, I guess, and whatever. I don't know the specifics because every fire is different. And every fire goes where it wants. Fire doesn't listen to you. We have internal exposures, external exposures. But the first tenet of firefighting is life safety first. You start attacking a fire after you start protecting the lives. The first units have to be trying to be assigned to try to rescue people. Life safety, then property. And then it's locate, confine, and extinguish. But after that, you have to realize what these men were up against. And women now. Actually, we have a woman on fire. I don't know if she was the fire, but firefighters, police officers that were at that scene should get, this is what they do every day. This is what they do every day. They go places where nobody else will go. They will try to get in places nobody else will even attempt to get into. And you got some bum like Paul Coogan trying to make this political, then he accuses them. That's the old projection. Oh, I don't know anything about Manning. Well, why did you talk about how great the department? You got no idea. You got no idea about the age of the apparatus. You got no idea about it. All you know is you got a chief that you appointed. And let him say that we're in compliance with 1710. We're not. Their living conditions have absolutely nothing to do with the fire, Denise. It's the building. The building is a nightmare for fire protection. It's got long corridors. I've been in that building. That was the old Redwood Manor. I had a lot of fires in there. I had a lot of fires in the old Redwood Manor. If it is classified as a nursing home, not a, what was that other thing, CJ? You're the guy with the
assisted living facility.
Assisted living. I don't know if that had enough to be classified as a nursing home.
It didn't. It had no nursing staff.
All right. So there you go. So it wasn't a nursing home because nursing homes have to be inspected quarterly. I used to inspect. All the chiefs had nursing homes to inspect for compliance. An assisted living also has to set up. There is a life safety code that is published by the National Fire Protection Association. That I'm sure was inspected.
Well, the thing is that nobody can answer the question, and Paul brought it up in his interview on whether the sprinklers were working. And from the way it looks,
whether the sprinklers were working, really, that was a question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, that question should have been answered 2 minutes after the fire
started.
Number one, the sprinkler head has a temperature value. If most of those people died from smoke inhalation, maybe the sprinklers didn't go off.
Right.
But if the sprinklers are shut off, you can tell. Because if you have a sprinkler connection, you have an OS and Y valve that you can look at from the outside of the building and tell if the sprinkler system's on.
Right.
You can tell if there's a sprinkler system in the building because there's an outside connection to the sprinkler system. All right? More political bullshit to deflect from the fact that you don't care about public safety. Only during an election. The first place you're going to go when we run out of money is to lay off firefighters that are already on demand and threaten to lay off police.
That's
You're
right.
a piece of shit, Paul, and you've been exposed. You don't know anything about anything, but now you're trying to cover your ass. You're not covering your ass on this one, baby, because I forgot more about fire science than anybody you know.
What's interesting is, Maura Healey came down, as you mentioned earlier, to review the scene. So she reviewed the scene, and she promised all the help the city needs and resources to be made available. So what's Paul going to do? Go hand in hand saying, I need $250,000 because I'm broke. On the agenda for tomorrow night's city council meeting, what's on there again? A transfer of $1.5 million for trash. Because the city council won't pay for it. And he won't take the hit.
I'm going to tell you, I mean, this is enraging to me. Like I said, I've been off the job for a while now. I remember every single fire victim that we ever had, and especially the ones that I was involved in.
And I'm very grateful for you on the department, from a personal point of view. Okay, because if it wasn't for you, my aunt would be dead. So would 2 babies.
Yep, she threw them out a 3rd-story window. Yep. So it's not like I'm speaking from theory, Paul. Unlike you, that everything's theory with you. Yeah. You remember 2 years ago, right, Nelson, when he sent down trying to block their pay raise? Yeah, they're not worth anything. Shut up. That's it. Don't vote. Even though it was illegal, 100% right. But yeah, well, there's a classic example. When I first came on the fire department, the Fall River Fire Department had between 298 and 300 men. We had 4 men and some 5 on the trucks, 5 on a truck. So let me do the math. I was going to start at the beginning. Let me explain something to the people here that are not aware of this. You go to a fire, you think, oh, fire engines show up, we're all set. Well, number one, first engine company there, the driver has to run the pump and get the water into the hose. The first guy on a ladder truck has to run the aerial and operate the aerial ladder, and we have to perform ground line. So if you've got 3 men, which is Fall River for the most part, especially during prime time, this is why I complained for years. You got 3 men on a truck, you fundamentally got 1. The driver's not going to do anything. The guy on the back, it's got the firefighter, and you got an officer. The officer is going to help, but the officer's job is not to pull hose, but they have to. Putting up a ladder takes a minimum, even a short ladder. You can throw it up with 2, should have 3. We've got ladders, large ladders that take 4, and some of them have 5 men to do a ladder revolution safely and properly to get to rescue people. So if you get your standard responses, 2 pumps, a ladder, and a heavy rescue. Count 3, 6, 9, 12 people. Some of those.
This fire had every piece of apparatus. 10.
Yeah, but the problem with that, and
mutual aid.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's going to be their excuse. That was Eddie Dawson's excuse before the council 20 years ago. Well, if we need more men, we're going to send them. Well, guess what? When somebody's hanging out a window with flames licking their ass, they're not going to wait for a pump coming from another district to have adequate manpower. The analogy I used in front of the city council that day was how ridiculously stupid this is for anybody who doesn't know and has never been at a major fire. And I've been to a lot of them in my time, where you need help quick. We had people hanging out windows on Rock Street. We rescued about 10 or 11 people out of that building, and we got them out safely, thank heavens. Why? Because when I got on, we had 4 men on a pump, 4, sometimes 5, on prime time. We had plenty of help. But saying that they came for mutual aid, I'll go get my book for the next show, and I'll show you the fire propagation in a fire. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes down the road, it's gone. If you don't rescue somebody in the incipient stage of the fire, they're gone. They're gone.
Hence why we have 9 casualties.
Yeah, they're gone.
5 firefighters were injured.
Okay, so let me use the
people who were seriously injured. And
so let me use the analogy. Maybe when Paul's one of Paul's assistants is watching this show, she can show that to that dipshit, and he'll learn something. Okay?
Well, let me tell you something, Chip. The IAFF representative that came down, and Michael O'Regan said it clearly. 8 more people. That's all it would have been. 8 more people could have made the difference.
Yeah, of life or death in the first 3 to 5 minutes of the fire. That's right. And
firefighters were answering the call off duty.
Yeah, and everybody does. That's one thing about the fire service. When I was I don't know how many times when I was on a job. I remember when I first got on, I was leaving the Globe station. They caught a fire. I knew it was a working fire. I didn't go home. I went to the fire and helped.
Right.
On my off-duty time, because that's the job. That's the job. These guys want to do the job. They want to save. There's nothing more gratifying than saving a life. Going to your aunt's thing at the Liberal Club when she survived that, when I would have, I'd have bet money. But I did that because I had 4-man crews and I had good crews. They were well trained and they did a great job. And you credit to them. You told them what to do and they executed. But this is the analogy when those bullshit politicians try to tell you, oh, it doesn't make any difference. We're going to just send places from the North End and somebody from down the center and somebody from here and there. No, it isn't. Here's your analogy. Let's play football. Let's have a football game. Spindle City Straight Talk against Paul Coogan and his band of merry bullshit artists. And here's what we're going to do, Paul. We're going to let you operate on your theory. We're going to start that football game. We're going to have 11 players. You're going to have 3. You can't bring anybody in right away because you only got 3 people available to you. You can bring him in later. Just like you're saying, we're going to call him from somewhere else. Someone's hanging out a window on South Main Street, and we got to wait for an engine company from downtown. So what's going to happen when you finally get your 11 people on the field in the 4th quarter? You're down 175-0 in the football game. But the only difference is we're not playing football with people in Fall River. We're playing with their lives. And for a piece of scum like you to politicize it and then accuse other people of, this is not the time. You're right. It wasn't the time. You shouldn't even showed up, because you know what a chief needs? He needs to be able to fight the fire, not talk to the mayor or make comments and shit like the time a fire commissioner showed up at my fire and wanted to ask all kinds of questions, and I had the police escort him away because I told him I was busy trying to save a building. And I said, later on, you can read my report, which you won't understand because you know nothing about fire tactics. So just get out of my way. You're a freaking bus driver. What do you know about firefighting? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Paul Coogan knows only two things. Political, kiss ass, get a job, give out a job, give out money, bullshit your way through life, high five kids in a high school. You get on a line, public safety, you're putting your ass on a line every single day. And we do that with pride. We do that with dedication because we love the job. And it bothers the rank and file firefighters when stuff like this happens. Kudos to them. Kudos to the police. Kudos to the firefighters. They put their life on the line every single day. That's why I respect them, even if I disagree with some things they do. But the fact is, when the call comes in, they show up. They show up. They don't leave the scene of an accident, Paul. They go to the scene of an accident. That's why you shouldn't be mayor. You are the most disingenuous, despicable dumbbell we have ever had for a mayor. With that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you. You're muted, CJ.
I said you're taking away everything from me.
No, go ahead. I mean, look. Let's forget about the politics. Let's talk about what these
politics. I just received a press release from Bristol County District Attorney Thomas Quinn, and it says there's nothing suspicious about this fire. It's being investigated by the State Police Fire and Explosions Unit and the State Fire Marshal with the Fall River Fire Department and the Fall River Police Department.
So and what is that?
And it listed off the names of the 9 victims.
Yeah. Well,
so they must have notified all the family members.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, this morning we made national news. We made the Today program.
Well, look,
on NBC.
Another politician.
Be watching the 6:30 news. I'm sure we'll be there as well.
Everybody's comment about the fire. Okay, everybody's comment about the fire. Number one, Quinn's running again. There's a run for DA. Everybody's going to stick their political nose in it again.
Of course.
Now, number one, Quinn didn't tell everybody that it's mandatory that the state fire marshal investigates fires that are suspicious or undetermined origin. That's in a statute. Okay, number one, that's in a statute. If it's not suspicious, I'm actually a court recognized expert in determining fire cause and origin. I did that by going to court so often by post-fire investigations as a chief. State fire marshal didn't come down normally for us, even in arson cases, because the state fire marshal is a state police officer. Most of the time, when they have chief officers who have a lot of fire experience, like we did in Fall River in those days, when we used to get a lot of fires, they used to come down and defer to us. That's got nothing to do with it. You know, it is relevant only because if it was an arson fire or something, you got to go to try to catch the culprit that killed 9 people. But the fact is, we've got nine people who had handicaps, and that's a nightmare of a fire. The people, some of them are non-ambulatory, whatever. It was a horror show. I know that. I mean, that's the worst possible scenario for fire rescue in a situation like that. And what are they talking about? They're trying to deflect everybody from the fact that we're undermanned. We've been undermanned for over 20 years. And we got minimum manning after Frank Candeas died. You ready for this year? When Frank Candeas died at 555 Middle Street in August, because I brought out the body the next morning when we relieved him at the fire scene. Frank was already dead at St. Anne's with 8 other firefighters in there for smoke inhalation trying to rescue this guy. And we found him in the bathtub under the ceiling. And when we carried him out of the building the next morning, you know what the comment was from the welfare rat next door? This is what pisses you off when you have a career like this. Nobody cares. Only when you're hanging out a window, just like the police. You know what one of the welfare rats said? Oh, they made sure they got their firemen out. We only got Frank out because he was 10 feet from. They only got Frank out because he was 10 feet from the window. Zip DuPont and 6 other guys went down at that fire trying to search for that occupant. We couldn't find them. And we had a difficult time finding them the next day. But this is what you're in to get that job. And the politicians were marching in that procession too. So forgive me if this goes up my ass 12 miles. When I see these bums, I'm telling you, I don't even want to see him, because if I could get my hands on him and he said dumb shit like that, I would be in trouble today, because this is a crock of shit. And the DA's in on it. They're all running for re-election.
That's right.
Somebody's already running. Now the DA's got to throw his 2 cents in. But what did the IEFF say? New Bedford's got minimum manning.
That's right. That's right.
New Bedford. They also got affordable housing.
Yeah, they got that too.
So
Chicky
what's
on
the
YouTube
moral
said,
of this story? Paul has exposed himself on Channel 12, saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. First, he tells her what a great job
right
they
now
did.
he's on Channel 10.
I don't know what they're doing.
Right now he's on Channel 10.
Oh, yeah, bullshitting his way through again.
Yep.
Somebody wrote him another script that's full of shit. So,
well, Chicky on YouTube says, "Wow, Chip, so sad. We need more than 8 firefighters. They have vacation, sick time, etc." You're right. You're right, Chicky.
No, I think what he was referring to was, if we were at minimum manning, we would have had 8 more
right
immediately at the fire, which is when you, like with your aunt. I got there with a fully manned truck for 2 fully manned pumps, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. We got there. She threw 2 babies out the 3rd floor window, and then the fire, which was blocking our entrance to the building because it was set in the entryway, and there was no fire escape available. She was trapped, and then the fire wrapped around, came out the front door, wrapped around, and went into the 3rd floor window where she was, and she disappeared. If I didn't have enough manpower, I could have never saved her. I had enough manpower to say, take a line, get me a line, hold that fire, push it back toward the front door, and give us 3 minutes or 4 minutes to get a ladder up to the 3rd floor to get her out. Then I sent Lieutenant Ernie Doobie up the ladder, and I said, listen, you only got time to check the first 2 rooms. If you can't find it, you got to get out. We can't hold this fire back anymore. We can't. He went up that ladder, and by the way, just for the record, Lieutenant Ernie Doobie, to show you the hearts of firefighters, his father, Ernest Red Doobie, died in the line of duty at a fire. But he still went up that ladder to rescue your aunt.
I know.
And he did. And he carried her down, and she was badly burnt. We medevaced her out. I didn't think she was going to make it, but, thanks to God that she did. And then we went back at the Liberal Club when I had a time for her, and she thanked all the men and everything else. But I will tell you one thing. I couldn't have saved her if I didn't have that manning. So manning, I know how important manning is. I've been to every major fire since Firestone in this city. All the mills, St. Peter and Paul Church. I've had people hanging out windows. I did 38 years on a line, and when Fall River was the busiest sized city, medium-sized city in the Commonwealth by a mile. We even beat Springfield and Worcester sometime. We were second only to Boston. I did my time on a line. This is an outrage. When I see stuff like this, I'm sorry, I just can't hold it anymore. I can't hold it. And especially with somebody like Coogan. That useless son of a bitch has never done anything in his life except suck off the political dole. And now he's going to try to bullshit everybody. He politicized this from the get-go. 5-star rating. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know anything about Manning. Well, how can you give it a 5-star rating? Do you know what insurance companies rate you on? Paul? I know what the answer is. That was a rhetorical question in case you don't know what a rhetorical question is. When the insurance comes down to rate, that's why you pay more in cities. They rate it on response time and manning. You pay more for fire insurance in Fall River because of the manning level. So this is all, bullshit from a bullshitter. He's running for re-election, and now everything's politicized. You don't politicize tragedies, just like Texas. How dare they start talking about that when they don't even check, and they're still trying to push it. I don't care what you think of Trump. I don't give a shit. The National Weather Service has said they had everybody on. It came out in the middle of the night. They were sending out messages, but people were sleeping and they didn't get the message, and they're trying to work on it. These things happen. But you know what can help at least minimize the damage these things do? By having 5-star adequate manning, having good apparatus. And this is what pisses me off, because everything they're talking about now, they haven't fixed since 1981. 1981, I became the president of the union, and I stayed president of that union till 2000, I don't know, into the 2000s, 25 years. I was complaining about our apparatus being crap and them waiting until it's falling apart and breaking down at fire scenes. I was complaining about manpower. You can go get the video of me complaining about the 1710 standard. Now everybody doesn't know anything. Oh, I don't know anything about Manning. Well, I leave that up to the chief. Well, the chief's supposed to know about the Manning standard because you're supposed to study the NFPA for a chief's exam. Why don't they do it? Because they want the job. That's why they didn't make me the chief of the department. So, but yeah, Beauregard Apartments, Jimmy, was 12 people. That's the one I spoke about at the beginning of the show when Manny Cavallo, who was the chief at the scene's driver, his aide, his uncle jumped out a third-floor window and hit the sign on the way down because they couldn't wait. We were laddering the building. We were putting ladders up and stuff. We got people out, but we lost, I believe, 12 at that fire. That was the largest lost fire I'd ever gone to. This is probably the second one now of the largest I've ever seen in my career and post-career. But the Beauregard Apartments was on a corner of what that was a horrific fire. It got a good hit. But it was also in an area, it was also in a time where we didn't have the regulations for the fire escapes, and we also had a lot of arson. And they used to set fires in the exits so they couldn't get out of the building. Yeah. Well, a lot of people were going out, and I mean, you see, the thing brings back memories. They say there's no such thing as like PTSD. I don't know, but I'm thinking now. I'm getting a flashback of not Fall River, but remember the World Trade Center?
Yep.
Remember when they were jumping out of
windows
and high rises with no chance of survival. They would rather go down, 20 stories to their death than get burnt alive, because that is a horrible way to die. I would probably guess most of these people succumb to smoking inhalation. As I said, the old stat in the NFPA was 75% of the fire deaths are caused by smoke inhalation. But this is just it's disgraceful. To have a mayor like this is just disgraceful. He is a disgrace. I've never seen anybody so incompetent and so just such a, well, I mean, I guess the apple doesn't, look what his brother did to the fire union. Sold them out for a job. This is what you got, pal. Get out and vote. If this doesn't wake you up, and they're gonna accuse, just like they do all the time. Oh, they're politicizing everything. It's got nothing to do with politics, pal. I'm going to tell you something. Firefighters disagree all the time. I saw guys nearly get into fist fights over baseball games and card games and stuff in a firehouse. And in the next minute, they were working with each other to drag people out of buildings. There's no race, there's no color, there's no creed, there's nothing when you go to an emergency incident for police or fire. Nobody asks for your papers. Nobody asks what color you are. They do their job. That's what makes them special. They're not Paul Coogan. It's not politics. Politics goes out the window. There's a time and place for politics. The time and place for politics is not after a catastrophic event like this. And you started this, Paul. You started this. You calling Healy. Oh, they're all going to flock. It's an election year. Oh, Healy. Oh, Healy's up. Quinn's up. Everyone. Who's going to come up next? The county commissioner? Everybody else. Nobody knows anything about firefighting. Like I said, I had a bus driver want to ask me questions at a fireground. Listen, that's like me going in the kitchen and asking a cook what he's doing. I can't cook. Okay, I don't cook. I don't know anything about cooking.
Unless it's on the grill.
That's right. I can put a hamburger on it, and unlike Chuck Schumer, it's not frozen when I put it on. But okay, I know. I'm not going to go in the kitchen and start asking questions. Oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing it? Because I don't care. I don't know anything about this stuff. So yeah, Coogan's going to say we got a 5-star department. Then when he gets pressed on it and the IAFF comes down and hammers him to a wall, he goes, oh, I don't know anything about that. That's up to you. I'll give him anything he wants. Really? Really? You'll be wanting to cut firefighters when we run out of money. You'll be wanting to cut police officers. That's.
Hey, and remember, they cut what, $3 million out of their budget this year?
Mm-hmm.
$3 million out of the fire department budget. I received a phone call from one of our viewers who's in the audience right now saying every single city councilor who voted for that budget, don't give them a vote. I don't blame them.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, this is the problem. As Fred Almeida said, that people better remember what the International Association of Firefighters said at that presser this morning. People don't understand, and I know Fred used to go to fires a lot, and lend a hand. People have no idea what seconds mean at fires. Literally seconds, because once you lose that, what did we say? What was that? I lost that one. Well, if the occupancy wouldn't, the occupancy to a degree wouldn't. It's the building itself, the fire load, et cetera, et cetera. The city, we have classifications in the NFPA that say that you should have a minimum of 4, and these are statistically proven. In other words, they did tests for years. They had a 3-man crew lay a hose line. They had a 4-man crew lay a hose line. They had a 5-man crew lay a hose line, put up a ladder, do all the evolutions necessary at a fire. And they found that a 4-man crew is adequate in what we call high hazard areas, which would now become heavily dense populated areas like Fall River with these market rate housing. You would need technically in a lot of those areas 5-man crews. But the thing is that calling in off-duty guys, it's done. You know, you call in the off-duty shifts like when you're going into a third alarm, and the life safety, which is the first critical aspect of firefighting, is a thing of the past. You know, once you get a mill like Firestone going, it's like, you know, it's over. And this is the key. The key is that the first thing that firefighters are obligated to do is to protect lives. Protect lives. And that all takes place in the initial phases of the thing. CJ, just take this over for a minute. I got to go check something. I may have a copy of something here. Hang on.
You always do.
Well, it may not. It may be up in the attic, this one.
That's interesting. No, I mean, this has been a huge political cluster. And we knew it was going to be. We knew it was going to be. Michael O'Regan, who is the president of the Fall River Union, brought it up at the city council meeting. The man is not well liked by the Coogan administration. The fire department isn't well liked by the Coogan administration because when they had an order that came from arbitration to give a 2% pay raise, the mayor gave that letter to all the city councilors in violation of the law to have them not vote for it. To have them not vote for it. This is what this mayor does. He's a dictator. I could use much more graphic details, but I'm not going to. Exactly, Fatima. That it's an election year. That's why they're all out. That's why they're all out. And again, as I said earlier, some people said, hey, they took $3 million away from the fire department during the budget season, which we've already been through. We're not even 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, people. It's exactly 2 weeks for the new budget. And the people of Fall River are already getting screwed by the Coogan administration. 9 people dead. 9. 1 in critical condition. May not make it. May go up to 10. 5 firefighters injured. Granted, they've been released from the hospital, but still, 5 firefighters injured. What's that going to do for staffing? 30 people, 30 seriously injured. Do you know that the nurses and the staff from St. Anne's Hospital came across the street to tend to the injuries of the people and bring them back to the hospital? That's dedication. Firefighters coming in on their off time. That's dedication. The fact that Paul doesn't care about life, what can you do? Not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. He'll have to live with that in his conscience. If he has a conscience. If he has a conscience. Scum don't usually. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we'll get. Okay? But I'm already finding political candidates, just to take a short diversion, which are violating the law on their campaign finance. Because they don't care. It's Fall River. Nobody follows the law. And that's why Paul turned around and said, well, the first questions that need to be answered, was the smoke detector system working? Was the sprinkler system working? Well, obviously, the smoke detector system must have been working because the signal station had a box alarm.
Box alarm went off. I'm back. And of course, the only book I can't find is that one. I just looked at it the other day, but I have so many books in so many places. I can't find the one. But on the next show, I will have the fire propagation pictures that show what happens in the first 3 to 5 minutes of a fire. But that's not the first question that should be asked. Because once the smoke detectors, whether they go off or don't go off, the most question was, did we have adequate manning to protect lives?
That's right.
That's the first question that should be asked. Did we have adequate manning to protect lives? If the smoke detectors didn't go off, now somebody is going to be in trouble because those are supposed to be functioning. Okay. Now, if the sprinkler system was off and it's got a sprinkler system, somebody's got to answer why. Because when you shut off a sprinkler system to an occupied building, you have to report it. Because there's a box alarm. When the sprinkler goes off, the box goes off. If the sprinkler goes off, it's only hooked to the box, or if the smoke detectors go off. So they're hooked into the box. So one of those two went out. They got a box alarm. If one of them was malfunctioning, you ask the question. But that's good. That's the relevance of that is not important when you have fire victims. Lives, life safety, the priority of the fire service, life safety. When you get to a fire, I had hundreds of fires in buildings with no smoke detectors functioning. You write the landlord up, they're in trouble. Then they have to be inspected. They have to go into compliance. But that's not relevant. What's relevant is when you get to the damn fire. Now, it is relevant if you don't have smoke detectors working because it doesn't alert the occupants. It makes our job harder. The fire would advance more. It makes life safety. It jeopardizes lives even more. It should be working. But that's irrelevant to the firefighters on the scene. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is, do we have enough bodies to do what we need to do to make search and rescue, to ladder a building, to do what we got to do with a fire? And that's the question that none of these bozo politicians have any idea have to be asked. This is why the IAFF came down here and took Paul to the woodshed. Took him to the woodshed. And as I said, this has been going on since 1981. This city doesn't care about the people. Mayors and politicians and councilors love to talk about public safety. They love to be in the processions at the funerals. Police, fire, you name it.
Because that's a look at me session.
That's right. That's a photo op.
That's right. And that's why Paul was out there. He's been out there all day today. Look at me. Look at me. Oh, I'm all red. I'm sweating. Oh, my sleeves are too low. Oh. I don't know anything about staffing. I don't know anything about manning. I leave that up to the chief. He knows all of that. I don't know.
But I gave him a rating. That's right. But I gave him a rating. And listen, you know what I liked with him? I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I normally go to bed early. Who gives a shit what time you go to bed, Paul? I don't care if you go to bed early, late, or anything, because, you should be, I think you're sleeping 24 hours a day. I think you've got narcolepsy. I don't know. Maybe you just walk around City Hall and you're asleep. So you're going to give a rating on a fire department that you know nothing about manning, nothing about apparatus, you know nothing. You're going to leave everything up to the chief, but you're going to grade them. Let's just say that's like me grading a cook, a chef. Okay, that's this is ludicrous. It's absurd. You can't compare. He's a total phony, and he was there. So
but I don't want to talk about politics. We have more important things to talk
about. And that's another thing. I just got to text somebody. They're promising to help. Well, yeah, they always promise to help, but help doesn't after the fact help. And then they're going to forget what the root cause is. Are they going to give us money to maintain manning? Is the state going to say instead of housing illegal aliens, we're going to ensure that every fire department is in compliance in the state of Massachusetts with the 1710 standard? No, they're not going to do that. They haven't done that since '81. When I left the job, we had worked from 300 down to 255, but I kept it at 255 basically. Now it's down around 200, a little over 200. It's not enough men. It's just not enough men in a city like this. And we're getting back to the point where we're going to have high occupancy in these 3 decades. They're renovated, but they're still 3 decades.
But a lot of these new market rate units, like the ones Tony Cadero's building, those are 6, 7, 8 stories. Everything they want to build down on Wall Street, 6, 7, 8 stories. And the ZBA, the zoning board of assholes, turns around and says, oh yeah, grant the variance, give me my money, grant the variance, give me my money, grant me the variance, give me the envelope. That's what happens. What happens.
But everybody forgets that it gets down to one simple thing. The fire department's here to protect lives. And all this stuff that they've ignored. And that's the thing. Like I said, Coogan's been in for 6 years. The same thing we were complaining about in the 80s, 90s, 2000, early 2000s, the 2010s. They're still complaining. Junk apparatus. Years ago, they promised they were going to put a rotating fund together to make sure we replace apparatus on a rotational basis. They didn't do it. They said they were going to put money away to fix the streets on a rotational basis. They didn't do it. Politicians, all they do is talk. And now they're all going to wring their hands and say, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And he's going to say, I'm going to leave it up to the chief. And the chief will come out later like Dawson did and said, well, we'll just call them in when we need them, Well, that's not the way it works, okay? I can guarantee you I went to more fires in my first year on a job than most of those guys will go to in a career now. And I fought some of the biggest in the history of the city. Notre Dame, 28 hours at Notre Dame, 28 hours at Kerr-Mill, 20-some hours at Arlen's, and 20-some hours at, actually the night before the captain's exam that I was taking it for captain. I was a lieutenant when Arlen's went on Rodman Street, and we were out there all day and night. We went directly from the fire to the exam at Durfee. So listen, you're not going to tell me what we need in a fire. You're not going to tell me what we need in a fire department. It's manning. That's why I was with the union. That's why they didn't make me chief, because I would have done exactly what Stapleton did in Boston. I'd shut the place down. I'd have a press conference like Stapleton and said, look, we don't have enough men. Something like this is going to happen. And it happened. And we could have saved some lives. All of them, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I can tell you one damn thing. I got a hell of a lot of fire experience. And I got a whole slew of commendations in my jacket to prove it. So, I mean, this is an outrage. And they politicize it, and nothing pisses me off more. The thing that used to bother me the most is the BS. So I'll remind everybody that we had minimum manning. We're going to try to get it back. Joe Camara was the swing vote. 5-4 against Minimum Manning. And that was back when I was the president, which was a long time ago, at least 20, maybe 20 years ago. And I told you what they did. They brought in some phony to try to lie about it, but they got caught and they still didn't change their vote. Did Joe Camara come back at the next meeting? And I showed them the letter, by the way. They were doing a WSAR thing from Stop and Shop down the South End. And I walked into the middle of the show and I handed them the letter to from the National Fire Protection Association and said that guy was full of shit. He was a sprinkler guy and that he would never comment again. And if he ever used it implied that he was speaking for the NFPA, they were going to fire him. We wanted him fired, but he'd worked there for 20 years. So they didn't fire him. But we never heard from that guy again. But this is what they do. They lie all the time. But I gave him the letter. Did he say, okay, I'm gonna make a motion to reconsider at the next meeting and we're gonna give you the minimum manning? No. He went, pick a finger. It had nothing to do about safety of the public, safety of the firefighter. It had to do with politics. That's simple. And this is the problem. This is what you got for a mayor. Now you're seeing all these disgraceful, unethical. That's why I hate politicians. They're all pond scum. I mean, I'm sorry, that's an insult to pond scum. But that's what we got here today. I mean, we've got this. Everybody's saying it, and like I said, they didn't lead with the victims. That's the paramount thing. We lost 9 souls. We had firefighters injured. We had police officers helping get the bill. And let's grieve for what happened here, but let's look at why it happened, and let's give credit where credit is due. Let's grieve the people who died, but let's give recognition to the fire and police officers who worked that scene as hard as they could and fix the problem. But you're not going to see it fixed. You're going to see a lot of BS, and that's all there is to it. So with that, CJ, back to you. Well, if we take back that $600,000 worth of pay raises he gave out, we got enough for men. And you're muted, see. And there are other ways to do it, too. We looked into that years ago on how to do things like that. There are other methods that we can do. But look, staffing, how do we fix this, George? Well, you've got to get your priorities straight. That's a good question because I'm glad you asked that, because what you have to do is get your priority. Do you truly prioritize public safety? Do you truly prioritize fire and police? Well, and that's the case, you have to make them to come up to their standard for manning, police manning, fire manning. Now, does that mean you might have to reduce some jobs in other areas that are not emergency services? Well, if public safety is a priority, yes, that's what you have to do. Maybe Paul could take the 3 supervisors that he created in the school department to take over for one supervisor that they'd had for like 30 years, and he reorganized the department and gave all his friends supervisory jobs, and we could have put on 4 or 5 firefighters.
Maybe he can take out of the 7 election officials, maybe he can take 4 of them out of there.
That's right.
Okay?
Maybe
that's one firefighter.
Yeah, maybe we could have spent some money instead of $7 million on benches and lights on Duval Street.
Right.
Al, when we're going to get them for free, maybe he could have spent that on fire apparatus. Right? But then again, that would mean you actually care. And they don't. Politicians are alligator mouths attached to canary asses. They all can flap a good game, and they're all phonies. Is it Chuck Schumer with the frozen hamburgers? What's his name? The other guy there. What's his name? the minority leader in the House there, photoshopped himself in with the trying to look like
Booker.
Yeah, Booker. Yeah, trying to look like I don't know, like a rapper or something. These people, all they are is optics. Listen, let me tell you something. When you're crawling down a hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the hair in your ears it's so hot, the hair in your ear is burning. Although they don't do that anymore. They wear Nomex hoods, which I don't like. But there's your temperature gauge. When you're crawling down a hall at 4 o'clock in the morning and everybody's running out of the building, there's no bullshit there. That's the real deal. That's the real deal. So, yeah. No, I know that, but that's, this is what politicians do. And like I said, there's going to be an influx of bodies. Like I said, I can't even believe that Quinn. I heard Healy came down and hugged them, and like they're all saying, "Oh, now all of a sudden he wants to prioritize the victims. Oh, we shouldn't be talking about anything like this." Why, Paul? Because he got trapped in a lie. That's why they don't talk about it. Several of them, yeah, several of them. Listen, Paul proved one thing now, beyond a shadow of a doubt. He knows absolutely nothing
about anything.
The fire service, and he should have just cut his mouth shut and said, "Well, the police and fire and they did a great job here. The police and fire were right there at the scene, and the EMS was taking care of the victims, and they did. Our city did a great job. They did what they could, and let's see what we get." Like they're doing in Texas. I watched the press conference in Texas. You know what Governor Abbott's doing now? They're trying to make sure this never happens again. They're trying to look at some kind of new alert mechanism that if something does come in the middle of the night, that when they have these camps and stuff like that, they'll be able to contact these people. They're looking to, even though they say this is a once in a 100 year, once in 500 years, something like the travesty, but they want to eliminate it. They're trying to fix the problem. Paul Coogan is trying to politicize the problem. They have no intention of ever doing anything. And just remember, every single time this city overspent, the first thing they threatened was to cut fire and police.
That's right.
So remember that at the polls.
That's right. Remember it.
Sorry I went off today, but this really pissed me off. Yeah. And I don't have a problem with that. Oh yeah. I mean, I got a great job. I mean, Coogan's put more. Look at that $91,500 job for that guy that had to leave because they caught him. Right? He got caught.
Diddlin.
Because he's working for that company that they're spending $1 million cleaning the ducts that aren't cleaned.
Right.
The school department is killing us. Coogan's made more jobs, as many jobs as he's made on the city side. He's made twice as many in the school department. Yeah, and his salaries are outrageous.
Right, because he has his kiss asses. Mimi Larrabee, Tom Corey, Shelley Pereira, Bobby.
Wait a minute. You know what happened? After some of those votes, she needed limp lettuce.
Yeah, tell me about it. It's always something. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Because after this fire, somebody needs to pay for it.
And keep the victims in your mind.
And we'll see you on Wednesday.